What if the richest person in the room was also the loneliest? And what if the one person who noticed was a broke single dad with a kid on his lap? This story is about a billionaire CEO who walked into one of the most expensive restaurants in New York City on New Year's Eve, alone, and got turned away. Not once, not twice, 3 times. A man who could literally buy the entire building couldn't get a table. And then a stranger, someone who had every reason to look the other way, stood up, waved, and changed both their lives forever. If you've ever felt invisible in a room full of people, this one is going to hit different. Stay with me. His name was Daniel Mercer. 53 years old, CEO of one of the biggest logistics companies in the country. The kind of man whose name showed up in Forbes lists, whose assistant had an assistant, whose calendar was booked 3 months in advance. But on December 31st, 2019, Daniel Mercer sat alone in the back of a black car, watching the city light up around him, and felt absolutely nothing. His wife had left 2 years before. His kids were grown and doing their own thing. His closest friends, if you could even call them that, were business partners who only called when they needed something. He had a penthouse apartment with 14 rooms and 0 people in it. He told his driver that night, "Just drive. I don't care where." But then he saw it. A restaurant called Lumiere, all glass walls, golden light pouring out, people laughing inside, fireworks starting to bloom in the distance. It looked warm. It looked alive. And Daniel Mercer, for the first time in years, wanted to be inside something that felt alive. He walked in. The host looked at him. No reservation, no party, just one man in a nice coat, and smiled the kind of smile that means no. "I'm sorry, sir, we're fully booked for the evening." Daniel nodded, walked back out, stood on the sidewalk for a second, then thought, okay, maybe somewhere else. He tried the restaurant across the street. Same thing, fully booked. New Year's Eve in Manhattan. Everyone had somewhere to be. Everyone had someone to be with. He tried a third place, a smaller spot, less fancy, the kind of place where the tables were too close together and the music was too loud. Still nothing. 3 restaurants, 3 polite rejections, and each one stung a little more than the last, not because of the inconvenience, but because of what it meant. Here was a man who had spent 30 years building an empire, and on the one night he actually wanted human connection. The city was full, and there was no room for him. He went back to Lumiere, not because he thought it would work, but because the light was pretty and he didn't want to go home. He stood outside the glass, watching people clink glasses and hug each other, and he thought, this is it. This is what I traded everything for, a view from outside. And that's when he heard it. Hey, mister. He turned around, sitting at a small table near the window. On the patio area just outside the main dining room was a man around 40 years old in a jacket that had seen better days. Across from him, bundled in a pink coat, was a little girl, maybe 7 or 8, with her hair in 2 lopsided ponytails. The man was waving at him. Big, warm, zero hesitation wave. Like they were old friends. Daniel looked behind himself. Nobody there. He pointed at his own chest. Me? The man laughed and nodded. Yeah, you. You look lost. You want to sit down? Now here's the thing. Daniel Mercer had sat across from presidents. He had negotiated deals worth hundreds of millions of dollars. He was not a man who got nervous. But something about that simple question, "You want to sit down?" made his throat tighten. He walked over. The man's name was Ray Calloway. He worked 2 jobs, warehouse during the day, delivery driving on weekends. His daughter's name was Lily, and she was already halfway, through a plate of pasta and completely unbothered by the new guest at the table. Ray explained that he'd gotten a last-minute reservation for 2 because his sister was supposed to come but had to cancel. So here he was, not a table for 2, just him and his daughter, watching the fireworks. "You looked like you needed somewhere to be," Ray said simply. "So, here." That was it. No big speech, no dramatic gesture. Just here. They talked for 3 hours. Ray didn't know who Daniel was. He hadn't Googled him, didn't recognize his name, didn't treat him like a CEO or a Forbes name or anything other than a guy who needed a seat. And Daniel, for the first time in longer than he could remember, didn't have to be any of those things either. They talked about their kids, about the city, about what they wanted their lives to look like when they got older. Lily fell asleep against Ray's shoulder sometime around 11:30. And Ray just kept talking, one hand steadying his daughter, completely at ease. When midnight hit and the fireworks exploded over Manhattan, Daniel looked at this man, this tired, kind, completely ordinary man, and thought, this is the best New Year's Eve I've had in 20 years. He didn't say that out loud, but he thought it. Here's the part that really gets me, though. On the way home, Daniel sat in his car and tried to figure out why that night had hit him so hard. And he kept coming back to one thing. Ray had nothing to gain. He wasn't networking. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He just saw a person standing alone outside a restaurant on New Year's Eve and thought, that doesn't seem right. Let me do something about it. There's actually research behind why this kind of moment hits so hard. Studies on loneliness, and this is real data, show that loneliness in adults over 50 has the same health impact as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. 15, and a 2023 report from the U.S. Surgeon General called loneliness a public health epidemic, saying more than half of American adults report feeling lonely on a regular basis. But here's the wild part. The same research shows that the solution isn't grand gestures or expensive therapy or buying more things. The most powerful antidote to loneliness is small, genuine human contact. A wave, an invitation, a seat at a table. Ray didn't fix Daniel's life that night, but he cracked a door open. In the weeks after that New Year's Eve, Daniel started doing something he hadn't done in years. He started paying attention to people, not as contacts or clients or problems to solve, just as people. He called his kids more. He showed up to things instead of sending a gift. He started having lunch with his team instead of eating at his desk alone. He also tracked down Ray, not in a creepy way. He'd gotten his last name from the restaurant's reservation list and reached out through proper channels. He told Ray he wanted to say thank you and asked if there was anything he could do. Ray laughed on the phone and said, "You don't have to do anything, man." But Daniel pushed. He found out Ray had been trying to start a small transportation business for years and had the plan. Had the contacts, just never had the startup money. Daniel connected him with the right people. Opened a few doors, made a couple of calls. Ray's company launched 14 months later. As of last year, he employs 11 people. And every New Year's Eve, no matter where in the world Daniel is, he calls Ray at midnight. Because a wave through a restaurant window cost Ray absolutely nothing. And it gave Daniel something money genuinely couldn't buy. Here's what I want you to take away from this story. You don't have to be rich to change someone's life. You don't need a plan or a platform or a reason. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just notice someone who looks like they're standing outside looking in and wave them over. The loneliest people in the world are often the ones who look like they have everything. And the kindest people in the world are often the ones who have the least to spare but give anyway. Ray had one table. He shared it. That's it. That's the whole story. And if you're the person standing outside right now, feeling invisible, feeling like every room is full and there's no space for you, I want you to know that someone is about to wave. And when they do, walk over. Watch the next video on screen right now. You won't regret it.